if I want to say something, I'm going to fucking say it, man.
Yeah, and guys, yes, no shit, we're late. Because it's a
Welcome back, mighty Vandals. The smoke is in the sky. We are Tubbs of the Club, the Idaho Vandals affiliate on the Big Sky Podcast Network. Gentlemen, there is a new offensive coordinator of the Idaho Vandals. But before we get to that, I'm your host, Alice Hammer, joined as always by brave, bold Brian Marceau.
Yeah, today is a good day to be a Vandal, guys. So there's nowhere else I'd rather be. I'm stoked to talk about on paper, this is goddamn huge news.
And last but not least, the brick wall, producer redacted, Marten Heemstra himself. Marten, how's it going? I did not land that as well as I thought I would.
It's all good. It's happy to be on. Happy to be back on a little sooner than I thought, but I'm excited to finally have an offensive coordinator to talk about and get things going again.
Yes, absolutely. Sam Dane in the comment section saying, had to do a double take on Dallas's hat. Not sure why. I am not sure what Sam is referring to either, but if you want to be as double taking as Sam is, just come take a look on YouTube and let me know in the comments if you recognize my hat or not. Anyways, guys, Marten, first off, I definitely want you to show off that sweatshirt a little bit more later on. Very spirited Vandal ugly sweater on by Mr. Producer Redacted. But guys, we've buried the lead long enough. Matt Lanahan out as offensive coordinator. Everybody knew that a month ago. If you've been following Tubbs, you knew that much longer than a month ago. Idaho's new offensive coordinator comes to us with a bunch of experience. It is Ian Shoemaker. Anybody who hears the name Ian Shoemaker and thinks, I think I kind of remember that. Most known for being the Eastern Washington offensive coordinator from 2019 to 2021, and the infamous "Stay Salty" tweet from Aaron Best that was coming after a 71-21 victory over the Vandals. So a guy who has certainly a bunch of experience kicking the shit out of Idaho. Shoemaker comes to us from Grand Valley State University, where he was the offensive coordinator the last 2 years. Before that, he was at Hawaii, was an offensive coordinator there. Also did some position coach duties as well. Again, before that was his run with Eastern. Before that, he was the head coach at Central Washington, and then he had a handful of stops along the way. But Marten, your immediate thoughts? The shoes, man. We've got some shoes finally.
Yeah, I'm hopefully he can get this offense running. I just trying to like reading the resume that was posted online. I'm excited. Like I think it kind of ticks all the boxes that I would have wanted for an offensive coordinator. I'll let you guys talk more about it just because I'm sure you probably know more than me. But I'm just like based off resume alone, I'm excited. I've already watched a video he did at Culver's, and it got me excited just watching that 9-minute video he did. But I'm excited.
You should be excited, dude. For longtime Tubbs listeners, you also might remember back in 2021 when we covered the coaching, when Petrino was shit canned, and there was a kind of long protracted search that eventually landed on Jason Eck. Before we knew about Jason Eck, Ian Shoemaker was a guy that a lot of Vandals would have been happy to call head coach in 2021. So getting this dude as an OC now it's weird. It feels like getting what you wanted back then, but on a discount in some ways. Look, Thomas Ford. I just know this was a multi-step, thorough process. My interpretation of this is essentially like, hey, how the hell did we land on Matt Linehan year one? We're doing the goddamn opposite of that for year two. And, through the multi-step interview process, including like both Zoom and online, Zoom and in-person interviews, Ford did his due diligence and he landed on a guy who has like Dallas said, shit ton of experience. He was a good head coach at Central Washington in his last 2 years, 2017, 2018. Central Washington won their league. And that's when he moved up to Eastern Washington. And at Eastern Washington, he had some talent there for sure. Not going to pretend that wasn't the case, but he had some really, really good offenses at Eastern Washington. And in spite of, at the time, Eric Berrier was there, one of the best quarterbacks in Big Sky Conference history. But Shoemaker, for a lot of his seasons, counting Eastern, counting Grand Valley State, his template seems to be, for the most part, to somewhere around a 50-50 split pass rush. There's some variance, of course. So the window, let's say, is 45-55 either direction based off the talent. But if you look year by year at what he did at Eastern, then if you look at, what he did as well in last 2 years at Grand Valley State, it's a guy who he absolutely knows what the hell he's doing. And especially those last 2 years at Grand Valley State is something I want to point to because he moved up from Eastern to Hawaii. He was only a play caller at Hawaii for 1 year. Timmy Chang switched up to the run and shoot in 2023, and then Shoemaker was out pretty quick. And so he bounced down to Grand Valley State. But if you were at all concerned, like, okay, well, he moved up to Hawaii, didn't go that well, does that mean he's a washout? No, he was really good at Grand Valley State. And the huge thing that I'm going to point to is in his 2 years at Grand Valley State, 2024 is the first one, they go 11-2, and then 2025 this year they go 7-3. Year one, they rushed it 67.8% of the time. So, more than 2 out of every 3 plays was rush. Then 2025, it shifts to just over 50% of plays are rushes, just under 50%, so 49 and change are passes, which is a way to say this is a dude who can absolutely adjust what he's doing based off his talent. And he's done it at multiple stops being successful. Dallas, before I filibuster you for a while, I want to get you in on this, but when we knew that Matt Linehan had mutually departed, as some would say, if you Dallas and I talk off air, of course, and Ian Shoemaker is a guy who right off the bat, both of us said, yeah, dude, if we can get a guy like Shoemaker, God damn it, that is a colossal deal for what this team needs. Not only do we not want a guy who's learning how to do the job, We want a guy who has done it well at this level. And there's also a guy who's worked very well with quarterbacks at multiple levels. So Dallas, I'll let you go with your initial reaction here, dude. But I just think, I don't know how you could have ended with a better on paper candidate than what Ford ended up with.
Yeah, I mean, if you're listening to this and you're disappointed that Ian Shoemaker has been named the offensive coordinator, I question what your thoughts were on what the candidates Idaho could have pulled were, because
Probably thinking they were going to get Lane Kiffin.
Exactly. Like, Chip Kelly just lost a job. Maybe he's looking for a bounce back in the FCS. Like, the realistic candidates that you're picking from, pulling an offensive coordinator into the FCS, you're not going out there and pulling a bunch of guys that are, again, slotted for future FBS greatness. We just saw a guy who had his eyes on FBS, had been an FBS defensive coordinator. Well, Cord Dennison left after 1 year. We haven't really talked about that on the show because we've had other things to come on, but Cord Dennison is no longer the defensive coordinator of the Vandals. Sorry for breaking that news to anybody that only listens to Tubs of the Club and didn't see that announcement and news being broken last week. So when you look at, realistically, what is Idaho going to get? They're going to get either an offensive coordinator that's been in the Big Sky before, or is somewhere in the FCS before, or a position coach from a bigger school, or even another FCS, like, big time school that's looking for his first job. And we just tried that out with a guy that, again, Vandal legend as a player, had all these incredible memories, is part of, again, the Linehan family has its roots very deep in Moscow, Idaho, but Matt Linehan wasn't ready. And I think it's pretty apparent after 4-8, man, things needed to change. The head coach is not getting changed out, at least not this year, because, again, 3-year contract. Everybody else is fair game. So what happens? 4-8 team, you go in and know you have to replace the offensive coordinator. Unfortunately, your defensive coordinator did leave for Oregon State. We'll see about that. We'll talk about that. But when you look at, man, what Idaho just went from, an offense that struggled to score points, an offense that just didn't feel like it ever gelled at any point in the season. And then you go look at this guy who has succeeded everywhere he's been for the last 15 years, other than Hawaii. Hawaii was a bit of a struggle. It's also Hawaii. A lot of people struggle there. They are on their second offensive coordinator post Ian Shoemaker and have just now finally crossed the threshold of winning more games, and then they lose multiple years later, 4 years into Timmy Chang's tenure as the head coach there. So all of this to say, guys, when you look at Ian Shoemaker and you look at what he did at Grand Valley State, that 2024 offense where they went 11-2, they scored 29.5 points a game, had almost 400 yards per game, and they ran the ball 2 out of every 3 plays. That is not the Eric Berrier Eastern Washington offense. Eric Berrier in his senior season threw for 5,000 yards and almost 50 touchdowns. Like, they had a Walter Payton Award winner at quarterback and they ran everything through him. 2024 Grand Valley State, Ian Shoemaker sets everything through the rushing game. Averaged over 215 yards per game on the ground, 32 total touchdowns, and then again through the air had 169 yards per game, 13 touchdowns. That was the extent of their passing offense. So I am thrilled about this. I could not be more excited about this. This is a guy who's proven at multiple levels of football he can succeed as an offensive coordinator, and he will adapt the offense around his personnel. And that's what I'm looking for here. We know Joshua Wood is the quarterback of this team. He was a captain last year. He's not in the transfer portal. There does not seem to be any indication he's leaving. Joshua Wood is the guy right now. There might be competition. There's other guys on the roster, but right now Joshua Wood is the guy. Last year the offense didn't click very well. I got to think a guy who's been coordinating offenses for over a decade is probably going to do at least a better job than what we had last year, Brian.
Well, we saw it. So one of the things that Idaho was weird about in the last year, and I'm not trying to dead horse the last season, guys, but we don't have anything to compare to yet. So one of the things that was, frustrating the entire season is it looked like Idaho offensively didn't know what they were or what they should be. And they did not look comfortable letting Joshua Wood operate outside the pocket. Well, Ian Shoemaker did very well letting Eric Berrier live in that RPO at Eastern. Something I think Joshua Wood doesn't have to be Eric Berrier level to be a huge contributor for Idaho. Like we all see there's absolutely some tools there. But the other thing that I think this is in some ways good is, and in some ways it's just, this is just a reality, is after, when Ford takes over, and look, the messaging was this because there shouldn't have been any other messaging. It was a continuation. Hey, we're continuing the X stuff. We'll change some stuff up, but the big picture is continuing of what X been doing. And I just got to say, I think this is good for Ford, but I also think fans just need to get on board with this. You got to bail on the standards of this team being Jason Eck. I'm not talking about wins. The team needs to pick up wins, but Ian Shoemaker is not a dude whose teams are trying to go for, 20-minute drives. This is a completely different guy. This guy wants to put pressure on the defense. Also, if you're a nerd like us, there's a lot of content available on YouTube of Ian Shoemaker doing like different podcasts, different types of, clinics where he talks about what he does. He is all about how can you layer stresses against defenses. One of those things that he's game to do is hurry up, or at the very least, hurry up and get to the line of scrimmage. Now defense can't substitute. So just bringing that up I feel like in year 2, people just need to accept that the Eck time was awesome. The comparisons to that have to be over. If this is going to work, it's just going to look different. And in some ways today, it feels like getting rid of Linehan and getting his own guy here in Ian Shoemaker, it kind of gets to be like our line in the sand of this is officially the Thomas Ford team, guys. It's going to work or it won't. We're going to see. But I know that for me, I feel like Ford is doing everything you would want a guy to do in the offseason when his team went 4-8, even with those close losses. I don't think if we had Ford on this show, he'd say like, yeah, we had a bunch of close losses. That means we're right there. I think he'd say, yeah, we had a bunch of close losses. And even if those all materialize, we're not skipping the first round. That's not good enough, guys. It's got to be, the standard isn't inching into the playoffs. The standard is we need to be a powerhouse in the FCS. And that's where you see things like firing Matt Linehan and getting an obvious objective upgrade at OC. That's also, Jesus Christ, Jason Mayer in the comment section. Hurry up offense doesn't allow the Moscow crowd time to start a cheer to drown out our audibles. Absolutely fair, Jason. Thank you. So like maybe that's where Shoemaker should have been. But look, I mean, we'll talk about recruits coming in, coming out, but Ford's had some pretty big signees this week, which again, different way of saying the depth pieces from the Eck time, who we thought were going to take over the program. A lot of them, hey, the jury's in. They left and they're not going to. So it's just a different program. And to me, that's, it's weird to say, but I think it's good. I think, being able, I honestly think symbolically adding a guy like Ian Shoemaker absolutely is a clear sign to everyone that this is a program that is not, it's just in a different direction. And no matter what happens, bail on the Eck comparisons, guys. This is Thomas Ford's team. And I love the idea of if we're not going to, if the Linehan experiment didn't work out, Eastern Washington, prior to getting rid of Ian Shoemaker in 2021, Eastern Washington had been the standard in this conference offensively. That, by the way, post Ian Shoemaker, that is absolutely not the case whatsoever. But grabbing a guy, probably the guy who is the most productive or that's available, or, most productive available guy from Eastern, it is hard to do better than that as a guy who's going to, the strategic direction of how to write Idaho offensively.
Yeah, a couple quick things I want to wipe up real fast. Taylor Cash in the comment section. What he did at Hawaii was like trying to change Army out of the triple option. And that's spot on. They tried to move to a more standard spread offense. It did not work. They transitioned back to the run and shoot that June Jones made famous 20 some years ago. And then Timmy Chang and Colt Brennan, rest in peace, all ran it and put up incredible numbers. And sure enough, when Hawaii went back to the run and shoot, things have stabilized a little bit, and they're perfectly mediocre in a mediocre conference. But I I ask anybody that's concerned about the Thomas Ford era to think about it this way. Thomas Ford comes in as about the only coordinator from the Eck era that Idaho could bring back. Dan Jackson was offered the job, said no. Every other coordinator is off for much better pastures. I mean, not to put Idaho down here, but Rob Orich was not coming back to the school. Rob Orich was the best G5 defensive coordinator last year, and then is now going to be the defense coordinator at Nebraska. Like, guys from the Eck tree are blossoming and growing beyond this place, which is really nice at times. Really a bummer when you look back on, there's not a whole lot of a shelf to pick from. Thomas Ford was the coordinator that we could capitalize on from the Eck era. Brought him in. Matthew Linehan, one of the few guys left that could have coached here from the Eck era. Didn't work out. Tried, didn't work. Where do you go from there? Let's go find some fucking experience, and let's see if doing things a different way is going to make this program better. Now, if none of this works, then yeah, we can continue having conversations like I've had with a handful of people in the last year of like, this isn't it. We got to capitalize on Eck. Ford's not the guy. Okay, we've discussed the roster, not what we wanted it to be. Goes out and signs the best recruiting class in the FCS. That's a good way to band-aid some of that. Offense looked horrible. What do? You go get probably the most experienced guy you possibly could have. Like, look, these things on paper, if they don't work, then yeah, obviously, we're going to be talking in a few years about a new coach. But man, what do you want a coach who's of a 4-8 football team to do other than go try to fix the holes? And that's what's going on. I couldn't be more happy right now at where this is headed. Line of Fire 9 to 5 saying on a scale of 1 to 10, being realistic, this offensive coordinator hire, I give a 9. Again, we're grading this in December, not even in January. We still have it's a calendar year away football. But right now, man, I feel pretty damn good about this. But you know what else I feel really good about, Brian? Taking an all-inclusive week-long vacation right in my backyard. If you are looking for a great all-inclusive week-long vacation, do not look past your backyard. Hughes River Expeditions has been Vandal owned and operated since 1976, and they're ready to take you on the vacation of a lifetime. Enjoy a multi-day trip down the Middle Fork of the Salmon, the main Salmon River of no return, the Salmon River Canyons, or even the Selway. You could check out special trips like one to see the Perseid meteor shower. Camp on pristine bitches, run amazing whitewater, hike scenic trails, spot wildlife, soak in beautiful natural hot springs. And guys, I say this every single week. Fish the most remote stretches of river in the entire United States. All you've got to do is just bring your clothes. HRE will handle everything else. Grab a paddle, catch dinner, and ride the bull all throughout the Gem State. Call them now, 406-540-4450, or check them out at hughesriver.com. Brian, I apologize. I cut you off to jump into that ad read because I thought I had a great transition, and then I thought I'd really set voices and some changes, and now here we are.
Yeah, well, just a reference point, guys. Idaho averaged 25 a game last year with Linehan. In 2021, when Shoemaker was mutually parted ways with Eastern, they were averaging 48. Like that's a fucking gaudy numbers. Like his worst season at Eastern, they averaged 37.7. Man, like that was the weird COVID year too. He's produced at this level. He has done very well with developing quarterbacks at multiple schools. And just another thing I want to bring up too is having the successful head coach experience, I think is a big deal. Thomas Ford in interviews with the Lewiston Tribune made it clear that hey, obviously Idaho's got to be better offensively, but he said look, the leadership was simply not good enough on the offensive side of the ball last season. Wasn't good enough. So we now have a guy who was a very good coach at Central Washington, including winning the league twice. I think that's a combination of, hey, we've got stability that's coming in, but we've also got a guy who's run a program himself. So Ford appears to be a guy who will give people space to do what they want, so long as as long as they're doing it well. He will give you space to run. He's going to give his coordinator space to run their offense or run their defense. And I think Ian Shoemaker is the type of hire where he hears that he's like, awesome. Well, I know what I'm doing day one. And in separate interviews, that's what Ford had made it sound like he wants. He wasn't married to any sort of offensive system coming in. What he was married to was a guy who can run his unit and who knew what he was doing. Both those boxes are checked, man. Ford doesn't need help with recruiting. That's the expertise, man. And that's where, we'll talk later about signees, transfers coming in that are guys to pay attention to as impact transfers. But what Ford needs is he needs play callers, right? And offensively, we just picked a guy who's been goddamn prolific at multiple stops. So, yeah, I mean, Dallas, I guess, phrase it differently. Everyone knows you and I are high on this, but like, dude, if this would have been who Ford announced his first year, I would have been like, oh my God. Like this, yeah, he's coming in ready to go.
We were already way too hot on last year's team. If he came in last year, I would have been talking about national title, Brian.
Yeah.
I would have been that excited about, holy fucking shit. We just inherited a defensive coordinator from FBS that's looking to rehab himself, and a guy who, again, has seen the playoffs many times in the FCS. I obviously would have loved to have had that last year. As Jason Mayer says in the comment section, great hire. I think we're +4 wins last year with Shoemaker. I don't know about 4, but I certainly think Idaho ends up on the positive side of 500 at the bare minimum. For those who don't do math, that's 3 wins at least. So Jason and I are on the same math. Crewhead 76 in the comment section. Shoemaker will make Ford better. That for me is the big one. As somebody, I don't talk too much about my personal life. Nobody gives a shit about what I do for work and all that stuff in this podcast. That's not what it's here for. But I do have some management and leadership in my background, and man, it's really rare to find people that are willing to be like, hey, look, I don't know. I want somebody else that's going to be able to run this, that I can just trust they're going to get it done. That obviously is what Ford's MO has been. It did not work last year. Well, you just took the keys from the 18-year-old getting his first real shot at a job to the 75-year-old man with 300 years of experience is essentially what you have just made this pendulum swing to. Could not have been more opposite on either sides of this. I'm ecstatic about it. I mean, hopefully we see Ford win some games, stick here for a long time, and hopefully Shoemaker is his offensive coordinator for a long time. But that's also not how this works. Let's say Idaho starts scoring 40 points a game. Well, he might end up with another FBS offer, but that's neither here nor there. That's years down the road and hoping that things go extraordinarily well. For right now, I cannot think of another person that could be a better offensive coordinator for the Idaho Vandals in 2026, Brian. And that's what I settle on.
This is really similar to when we had Eck on our show back in the day. And Eck talked about he tries to hire people who are smarter than him. Like, what Crewhead, you're saying a different version of that, of hire a guy who absolutely knows his shit, who's also been a head coach and done well before. Like, no, dude, that's I just already a minute ago said, hey, look, let go of the Eck comparisons. It's going to look different, but that is absolutely in line with, let's say, like the macro type of vision Jason Eck had while he was here, of hire guys who know goddamn well what they're doing and let things roll from there. Yeah, man. I know you don't win games on paper in December, but this offseason, I feel like Vandals have a lot to feel good about with the direction of things going. So far, as far as the transfer portal, Idaho's lost like one guy that's an impact player so far in Matthias McLean. And the rest are the type of spots where we appreciate people's time here, but like once you transfer, like you've actualized all you're going to actualize here. And most of the guys, if you look at the body of work as what they're actualizing, a transfer spot is much more valuable than what the contribution was from most guys that are in the portal right now. Sam Dane saying, we aren't going to make an hour out of the show if we walk away from the Eck comparisons. That is, God damn it, Sam. God damn it, Sam.
That is not true, because the last half hour of this is going to be our deep dive into the Sharon Moore investigation, and then followed up with 5 minutes of talking about Jason Eck potentially being the Michigan coach. See, Brian's excited.
Yeah, but the other part I want to add to now, like talking more about on the field, is if you were a guy like me last season who kept watching Idaho and kept wondering when the offensive coordinator was going to figure out his most talented player was Joshua Wood, I don't think you're going to have that trouble with Ian Shoemaker running the show. What he runs is, look, my understanding, Dallas, you tell me if I'm a little bit wrong here, is it's like sort of spread, but it's actually he runs like a lot of different type of formations where depending on what they're going for. At least when I read about him, in Hawaii, the complaints in Hawaii were that his system wasn't like one thing, and it took Hawaii a minute to figure out what they were doing. But my understanding is this is just a dude who, like, hey, he's gonna call whatever he needs to win. But there's a lot, they're not the same player, but there's a lot of play style overlap in the Venn diagram of Eric Berrier and Joshua Wood. So I don't think there's a better guy that we could have to be working with a mobile quarterback who we don't want just standing in the pocket. So yeah, I know that we're all going to have versions of tempered expectations talking about 2026, because we all just lived through the disaster of, you expect top 8 and then you're top 5 Portland State at times feeling. That was rough. So like, we all know, like, hey, we need to actually see wins to know what the hell this is. But as far as winning the offseason, Ford is doing a shit ton of stuff correct, of good stuff this far in the offseason, the type of stuff you want a coach who isn't trying to just get by, who's trying to leave his mark. That's what it feels like the move to Shoemaker is.
And again, this is very far in front here, line of fire 95, but I agree with this for the most part. Ideally, Ford gets a promotion, Shoemaker gets promoted to head coach. Win. Like, that is very, very true. I'm not saying, man, we got to get Thomas Ford out of here, get him to be Jason Eck's running back coach at Wisconsin in 2027. And if that happens, like, congrats to him. But setting up at least like a decent enough tree here of, like, yeah, let's say Idaho has an incredible year and Thomas Ford gets an incredible job offer, can't say no, leaves. It does not necessarily feel, I mean, maybe he'd take Shoemaker with him, but it doesn't feel like the bottom would drop out of that the way that the Eck era did, with everyone disappearing. So this is way out in front, but again, Brian and I talked about Shoemaker as a potential head coach for Idaho in 2021 when Paul Petrino was mostly walking his way out of the door, crawling his way out. I don't know how you want to explain how the end of that season ended. It was like watching a car crash over and 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 over again. But for me, Brian, the thing I come back to is, man, Eric Berrier was a very good quarterback before Ian Shoemaker showed up. He came in after Gage Grubrud got hurt, led the team to 8 wins or 9 wins, whatever it was, had a really good season his sophomore year. And then what happens? Ian Shoemaker shows up and they continue to score a shitload of points, only scoring more and more and more. James Aldrich in the comment section, Paul was limping his way out of that like he'd just gotten in a motorcycle accident. That is my favorite comment of the year. So thank you for that one. That's a Bobby Petrino joke for those who really didn't get it. But Brian, you look back at Eastern and there's obviously some concern with going to a well that is certainly dried up and has been dried up for years. But again, this lines up with, man, Ian Shoemaker in 2021 dropped 71 points on Idaho. The next 2 games, they lost to Weber State. They put up 34 points, I think. Then they lost to number 4 Montana State. And after that Montana State loss, something happened between Best and Shoemaker, and they went their separate ways. It sounded like an actual mutual separation and not the Matt Linehan mutual separation. from that point forward, Eastern made it through the rest of the year, got killed by Montana in the second round of the playoffs, and have been complete and utter dog shit ever since. I'm not saying that's all on Ian Shoemaker, because that also lines up with, hey, look, Jason Eck got hired and Idaho is now not a laughing stock across the big sky. They were before, not anymore. So that, like, obviously that changes some of the regionality, some of the recruiting. There's obviously some sniping that goes back and forth between Idaho and Eastern. Not that Idaho and Eastern are always going for the same recruits, but being 70 miles apart, that tends to happen a little bit when you're in the same exact conference. But man, Ian Shoemaker left Eastern and that program completely collapsed. The best days are so far behind them. Man, the guy has succeeded everywhere except one of the hardest jobs in college football, where he maybe even, I'd love to have a chance to ask him this someday. What was the idea between putting in that offense at Hawaii? What was the goal? Did you think it was going to fix itself after a couple of years? Did Timmy Chang decide, hey, midway through, I really want to run the run and shoot? Be really curious, because that's the one blip on a resume filled with, this dude has won at every single level. He's been a coordinator at 7 different colleges. The guy has experience doing this and has succeeded at every place but one. And again, that one place is extraordinarily hard to succeed at. So if you're looking for blemishes, there's one. But man, you go through everything this guy's done, and especially the games you've watched with your eyeballs, Brian, I legitimately could not be happier about this offensive coordinator hire right now.
No, even that 2021 season for Eastern, they averaged 13 points a game fewer after Shoemaker left than before he left. They're averaging 48 a game while he was there. They closed out averaging 35, which, hey, by the way, 35 sounds awesome compared to Idaho last season. But it's just wild to think how good that team had been humming offensively in the 2 losses, that eventually led to Shoemaker, mutual departure from Eastern. They averaged 27 a game in those 2 losses. And that was thought of as such a catastrophe at that time, apparently, that, best made a choice. Idaho averaged 25 last year. So like fucking Idaho's 25, Idaho's season last year was still not even good enough to have been tolerated for 2 weeks at Eastern, back in 2021. And again, Eastern objectively took a step back offensively after he left. And, the well seems to have officially run dry at that point. Full disclosure too, like, Best is relatively infamous for being, let's say, sensitive to being the smartest guy in the room. So the fact of Shoemaker butting heads with Best, when I've seen what Eastern's been since then, is to me a credibility marker for Ian Shoemaker. He doesn't need any more. This is a absolute home run hire. We need to see it during the season, but we're in December. This is all we can do right now, is talk about what's happened. And I don't know how this offensive search could have possibly gone any better, dude. Name a box, it's been checked.
Just hitting the comment section real quick. Smith 9390. Not all institutions are the right fit, and known football guy, Crewhead 76. Hawaii is different. It's just like the service academies. Man, every box you could possibly want checked is checked. Idaho grown T-Cash, 30 points per game needs to be the minimum goal next year. Couldn't agree more. And again, it came from 2024. GVSU was 29.5 points a game, so right under that, but again, second in their conference.
Well, asterisk too, when you run it 2/3 of the time, you do put a limit on how many points you're going to score.
Yeah, that's 29.5 points a game while also owning the time of possession. And like you said, Brian, they ran the ball 67% of the time. That's pretty impressive. And then last year, 37.5 points a game with a perfect balance of run and pass that season. Just pretty thrilled that this is going to give Idaho everything I've wanted. There's now a head coach in charge that is all about the Jimmies and Joes, and now the offensive coordinator lines that up with the X's and O's. Like this, on paper, this is a really good hire. We're going to see obviously on the football field in August and in September and October and November, hopefully into December. But man, on paper, this is a staff I really am starting to believe in. Brian, We are 40 minutes in, and I think we still have a sponsor we haven't gotten to.
We do. I'm going to assume that's my cue. So, dude,
Yes,
you guys got to check out vandalgear.com. Best place to get your Vandal gear online. It's been run by Pacific Custom Sports, where it's a company out of Spokane, Washington for 25 years, Vandal owned and operated. They have the best Idaho shirt selection. It's high quality, and the pricing is really good compared to most places. Martin's showing off that the ugly Christmas sweater. You got your Fighting Taters, you got Idaho and Script, you got the Home Sweet Dome, which I think is a shout out to the Amalgamated Sugar sponsorship of the Kibby Dome. You got the retro Grumpy Joe yellow shirt with the gray stripe across the chest. But also, look, there's accessories. We talk about this every single week. I don't know why Dallas likes fanny packs, but if you're going to get a fanny pack, get the Idaho one from vandalgear.com. You can also get rocks glasses, pint glasses, socks. Look, essentially anything that you can put a logo on, it's pretty much here. And that goes for the Vandal stuff, which is, what we're all here for. But if you're a business, if you're an org, if you're a school and you're running a fundraiser, or you just want to have something with your logo on it, get a hold of Jeff. He can work with you to help to make a logo if you need it, or obviously use your own logo. And legitimately, if you can get a goddamn fanny pack with Idaho stuff, you can get anything with your logo on it. So the website's vandalgear.com. Get a hold of Jeff.
And to answer James's question in the comment section, if I've gotten the fanny pack yet, no, because it is Christmas time and I will get slapped if I buy something for myself around this time. That's actually why I have this big red mark here. People think it's a birthmark, but no, my wife is just abusive. That is a joke in case anybody is actually listening to me. Gentlemen, we're 40 minutes in. Any thoughts on Ian Shoemaker that we have not touched so far?
Nothing other than I'm ecstatic for what we're going to see. It's going to make spring ball a lot more interesting now too.
Yeah, very much so, because I feel like this is going to be where we can start to glean a little bit more out of what we can expect to see Joshua Wood develop into. As again, the guy was brought in with the intention of him being the guy. Yes, last year things didn't quite go as well as everyone would have hoped. But I think that we've beat that horse to death here, guys. I buried the lead very early on. Court Dennison, no longer the Vandals defensive coordinator. I figure we should probably discuss this for just a fraction of a second.
You're saying you would like to mutually depart from the OC talk?
Yes, thank you. We are mutually parting ways from our offensive coordinator talk, and are now moving on to defensive coordinator. For those again who heard me offhandedly mention it towards the beginning of the show, or those who saw it on the internet in the last week or so, Court Dennison, no longer the Vandal defensive coordinator. That was maybe not a mutual parting of ways either. I would imagine in a perfect world, Thomas Ford would have had Court Dennison back for year 2. But Court Dennison now headed off to be the co-defensive coordinator and linebackers coach for Oregon State University. So, more power to him. Good luck, Court. We all knew, I think, going in when we talked about him a year ago, hey, this is a guy who's a Power 5 player, a Power 5 defensive coordinator. Obviously, it's P4 now in the year 2025, but at the time was a P5 coordinator, was a P5 player. Obviously, was a guy who had FBS aspirations. Seemed to be trying to build the career back up. And did enough to go get an FBS job. Say what you will about the defense and how frustrating it was sometimes watching 3 guys rush the passer on 3rd and 14, only for them to complete a 22-yard pass. But Court Dennison, I think, did a lot with a little at many times throughout the season. Yeah,
it's safe to say that the defense held up their end of the bargain far more than the offense did for Idaho 2025. Obviously wish Dennison the best of luck. If you look at Idaho coordinators from 2022 on, and again, that counts this season, this 4-8 season for Idaho. Coordinators at Idaho are doing awesome overall. Like, you have the only 2 who have not capitalized on that position are Matt Linehan, OC, and Tyler Sutton, who is special teams coordinator. But seriously, go down the list. You have Rob Orich, who, DC used that to go to San Diego State, as you referenced earlier. Now he's at Nebraska. Jason Eck and Luke Schleisner doing pretty goddamn well, taking New Mexico to their best season in God knows how long. Thomas Ford And Dan Jackson took time as coordinators at Idaho. Obviously, Dan Jackson, defensive, Thomas Ford, special teams. They were able to move on from those jobs, and Ford moved up to Oregon State. But now those guys are both FCS level head coaches. So now Court Dennison joins a very long line of guys who have used their time recently as Idaho coordinators to advance their careers. And, it sucks sometimes when guys leave. But if there is a single school, I'd say, that you want to be at as a coordinator to advance your career in these last 4 years in the Big Sky, it's not Montana. It's not Montana State. It's not UC Davis. It's Idaho. So Court Dennison it gets to be another marker for potential candidates that you can use Idaho to look. Idaho's a good job for that. Some people would say, hey, the end, this is a good job. I don't need to discuss this further. But virtually everyone is going to see Idaho as a place to either launch your career or turn your career around and essentially relaunch it. So, we'll see what we get out of the defensive coordinator, process. We'll say what we used as our template offensively. Seems like on paper, I feel okay with the results. Thomas Ford, the guy managing things in the offseason, seems to know what he's doing pretty damn well. So, as far as like a timetable, we'll see. I know that the interviews have already been ongoing. It's not like, Ford waited for the announcement of the OC to then, start contacting people. It's a multi-step process to get a hold of coaches, both online and in person. So I expect we're going to have an announcement pretty damn soon. Ford knows you have to move both. You have to be thorough, but you got to be reasonably quick at the same time. And I think that's a fair description of what happened at the offensive coordinator position. And, just assuming these processes have been ongoing simultaneously, I expect we're going to get an answer in not too long.
Yeah, I just want to co-sign that, Brian. I hope that the defensive coordinator has a resume very similar to our new offensive coordinator, a guy who has coordinator. Ed? I can't figure out how to make this joke work when I'm.
I love how like 4 people get that joke too.
Yeah, I know. Well, if we left the website up and the ode to illiteracy up, then we could have maybe dozens that would get it. But anyways, this inside joke that only the 3 of us plus maybe one other person get. I want a guy who has succeeded at multiple levels, particularly the FCS. That is what I want to see in the defensive coordinator. Only because I don't want to run the risk of giving a guy a shot that falls completely flat on his face. Matt Linehan, not to keep hitting that dead horse, the guy had not been a coordinator before. The guy had not called plays before. The guy had not been in a leadership position before. I don't want to risk that again. Made sense to risk that on, again, an all-time legendary Vandal player. Makes sense to take that swing. Unfortunately, we missed. Go back up, swing again, but this time maybe swing at the curveball hanging over the plate rather than the high and inside fastball that just touched the plate at 99. Maybe don't do that. That's my big ask, Brian. I don't really give a shit about if it's going to be a 4-3 or a 3-4 or a 4-2-5 or a 3-3-5. I really don't care what the defensive coordinator wants to do with his group. If it's going to be, hey, this guy has succeeded at this level, again, hopefully at the FCS level. If he succeeded at the FBS level, even better, but I would question how he's done at Idaho. I want to see somebody with proven success on the field. Obviously, again, we had that with Court Dennison. Yes, there were obviously the misses. We've spent an entire year talking about the shortcomings there, but like you said, the defense answered the call significantly more than the offense did. If you bring in another defensive coordinator that has experience calling plays and coordinating a defense at an FCS or FBS level, man, you just had a 4-8 season, and what happened? You brought in the biggest and best FCS class in the country. You brought in a proven offensive coordinator and hopefully a proven defensive coordinator. And that's a pretty good outlook for turning around what was an unfortunate and bad year for Vandal football in 2025.
Yeah, well, I think we're on the same page, man. And it was already announced that Ian Shoemaker will be introduced formally as the Idaho head coach when Well, it'll be a minute. I think they're just going to formally announce, like, introduce all the coaches together. Dallas, we have a few minutes left. There's some other Big Sky coaching news. We'll just make this a football in the episode, guys. We'll update you on the new Idaho recruits and Idaho basketball and shit next time we record. 2 other hires took place in the Big Sky. Top 5, Portland State grabbed a shockingly good head coaching candidate in Chris Fisk, who's been at Central Washington for 7 years. And I honestly
good for them.
Hey, before we talk about Weber State, let's give you a minute, Dallas, because I think you and I were both, when we saw the announcement, we were both like
blown away. Yeah, blown away. Absolutely blown away, Brian. I
thought they were going to go get like a D3 hire. Like it was going to be someone crappy, like a Willamette or something else, but they got like a really good D2 head coach who's, granted, the turmoil that Central's had for conference stuff, like getting a good Lone Star Conference coach is a really good, almost probably a top 5 hire for them, as Sam Dane is saying in the comments.
Martin, spot on all of those. Sam, great point on the top 5 hire. Realistically, man, they are going to be fisky, Martin. Again, Central Washington has had, the GNAC fell apart, and they're in the Lone Star Conference now, but they have made the playoffs each of the last 3 years. They have won significantly more games than they've lost over Fisk's career. He is an Idaho guy. He's from Pocatello, actually, and then has been.
You pronounce Pocadildo wrong.
I call it Pocahellhole, but
okay.
McLean didn't like that, so I was trying to be nice. They did win the trophy this year. I was going to give him one episode not saying it, but hey, I've said it, so fuck him. Man, I don't know why Chris Fisk took this job. This is an awful, awful, awful job. Martin, oh my God, you're going to get blocked for that one. Wow. I can't even say that because I will start dying. Chris Fisk, again, 48 wins, 22 losses at Central Washington over 7 years. Outstanding record there. Now, yes, Martin, like you said, they are kind of falling apart a little bit. But Portland State is Portland State. They don't pay for full scholarships. They play in a glorified middle school stadium. They have about 20 people that even care about their football program, because the biggest fan of Portland State football is currently here on the show right now with us live, throwing it over to Brian Marceau, who ended up being the person to point out to Portland State, hey guys, did you have a recruiting class this year? Because you didn't even post it on social media. So Brian, as the world's expert fan on Portland State, your thoughts?
Yeah, they were radio silence online for like 2 solid weeks after the season finished. So in the comment section, Patty Frakes saying Fisk spent some time at Southern Oregon. Yeah, he was an OC, a co-offensive coordinator and O-line coach at Southern Oregon from 2011 to 2015.
And then he took the same job at Central and then was promoted to head coach.
The first thing I'd say is, if Fisk can just bring a bunch of his Central guys over, Portland State is automatically better than what they were this past season, where it was like one of the worst things we'd ever seen. And I'll say this now makes Portland State officially interesting. Are they top 5? They'll never not be top 5 on this show. But, Fisk is a guy who, like, I don't know his play calling background, let's say, because, his titles are co-OC. And when I read that, I don't know exactly who does what then. But, if Fisk is announced as an OC at a Big Sky school that's not Portland State, let's say he gets announced as the OC at Weber, something like that, right? My first thought is like, ooh, damn, he could advance his career pretty damn quick there, right? Portland State, I don't know, but at the same time, all he's got to do is be okay, and they're radically better than the garbage we saw this last season. So I'm hopeful for Chris Fisk that he makes the team interesting, but still get their ass kicked by Idaho. And that's kind of where I'm at. But Portland State had been so goddamn fatiguing for us, Dallas. At least I think I'm speaking for both of us. These last handful of years with Barnum, where there's no put down to Barnum himself. It's just, it seemed like they don't invest in athletics. Barnum was loved by the Big Sky media because he's fun, but that always seemed like it turned into Portland State's expectations being rounded up when they should be rounded down year after year after year. And then the bottom finally fell out this past year where it looked like Barnum was trying to get fired on the sideline. So I guess at least letting Portland State now be worth paying attention to is a win for Big Sky fans themselves. There is another hire at Weber State, which this turns some heads too. Weber State hires Eric Kerr, spelled KJAR, but been told it's pronounced Kerr.
Kerr.
Yeah, his experience, he has no college experience. He's been a high school coach for 17 seasons. However, he's been a pretty goddamn good high school coach in Utah. Went 181-39 over his 17 seasons, won a shit ton of state championships, essentially built
last 14 years.
one of the best high school powerhouses in the nation. And when I heard that news and read the background, I essentially had two thoughts at the same time. The first was, man, how pissed would I have been if Idaho hired a guy with only high school experience? I don't care where you run, what place you ran. Like there's a lot of guys who look very, very good at high school and it doesn't translate. No, we're happy to have Sheldon Cross where he is at Idaho, but he was a really good high school coach who had obviously it didn't translate while he was a coordinator at other places. Not saying this because there's obviously contextual stuff that matters here too, but just being a good high school coach doesn't necessarily work. Dallas, you off the top of your head can probably bring up more examples of high school coaches moving up and this not working. I will say in the Weber world, Kerr has been a guy who's been on their radar for a long time. Talked to Colby Peterson, friend of our show, huge Weber State fan. And he said back in the Jay Hill days, Kerr was the guy that everyone wanted Jay Hill to bring in as the OC. So that just means in Weber, it sounds like Weber is very happy with this move. The guy has as good a reputation as you can have as a high school coach, building like a, freakish powerhouse. Like Jason Mayer says, Kerr's team beat Bishop Gorman last year. So, if you pay attention to high school football, 1%, Bishop Gorman's a huge name. But this is a gamble. Of course, the guy has not coached a single collegiate game. He acknowledged that in the presser that he knows Weber State's taking a gamble on him. So same thing here. It will now make Weber interesting. Weber had been boring under Mickey Mental because it seemed almost instantly you could tell it's not going to work, guys. So Weber morphs into a team that's going to at least be a fun storyline to watch. And my hope is similar. I want them to be solid. I want them to be good enough to beat good teams who are not Idaho, but I still want them to get their ass kicked by the Vandals.
Mm-hmm. Brian, just to give a little bit of correction there, Sheldon Cross was a FCS coach well before he became a high school coach. So a little bit different there in that he'd coached at a handful of D2 schools. Then he ended up, I think, at Illinois State. Then he was the Idaho State offensive coordinator. That's when then he left for Kennedy Catholic or whatever Sam Heward's school was. Thank you. Thank you, Martin. Perfect. Kennedy Catholic, where he coached Sam Heward and X-Ray Alexander, and I think maybe Junior Alexander might have been there too. Anyways, then went off to Cal Poly. Anyways, he was a college coach with a bunch of college experience around that time as a head coach in high school. If you're looking for coaches that have made the jump from high school to college without really having any previous experience, you're looking at Ed McCaffrey.
That worked well.
Think that is all you need to say about that one. Todd Dodge, I guess, at North Texas. I think he won single-digit games across 5 years, so not good. Somebody can.
Was he the coach that got throttled by Portland State?
Yes, I believe so, Martin. That is a deep pull. That is a deep pull.
I'm pretty sure that's Barney Bowl.
That Barnum would have been after that. That would have been whoever was before Barnum. But anyways, I just pulled it up. North Texas went 6-37 in 4 years, hiring a guy who was had won all sorts of state titles in Texas as a head coach there. The big one for me, and there's Faust at Notre Dame. He's probably the most successful one, and I don't think anybody could say that was successful. The big one for me in the last couple of years, Trent Dilfer took the jump from whatever academy in Nashville he was at in Tennessee, and then went to UAB. Was a complete and utter dumpster fire on top of being a complete and colossal fucking dickhead. thank God he's gone. That guy's a piece of shit. Anyways, Tony Sanchez is the one for me. Tony Sanchez is probably the most successful coach to ever leave the high school ranks and jump up to college football. He was the coach at Bishop Gorman back when they were winning 14 games every single year and won like 7 straight years of being undefeated. Left that Nevada high school to UNLV, was at UNLV for 5 years, never won more games than he lost, got fired, ended up building his career back up, is now the head coach at North Dakota, at New Mexico State University, where he has also not won more games than he's lost. The guy has not made a bowl game in 7 years, does not look like the future is particularly bright in New Mexico. Again, not to litigate the FBS, FCS thing, but look, New Mexico State getting good in the CUSA, that was because Jerry Kill was their head coach. Jerry Kill's a fucking winner. Jerry Kill left after 2 years. That program completely collapsed again. So I wish Weber State the best of luck. I like the Weber dudes. If you're trying to make an argument for this high school coach figuring it out, and he did coach multiple NFL quarterbacks. He was Zach Wilson's high school coach. He coached Jackson Dart for a year. Zach Wilson's maybe not the best example of a successful NFL player, but the guy has coached NFL talent. He's gonna know Utah very well at an FCS school that realistically needs to lean on some of that Utah talent and bringing in local kids to try to boost that program back up. I don't necessarily hate it. It also does scream, we looked in our backyard and this was the best option we had, rather than let's hit the search firm and let's find somebody with some experience. James Aldrich in the comment section, depends on how you define success. Zach Wilson is a dog with the moms. This is true. I was talking about on the gridiron, but hey, success other than other places in life, good for Zach, man.
Yeah, I don't hold any ill will towards most non-Montana State Big Sky teams. So, and Sac State's gone. So with the silent K, they're gone. So ill will's on the road there, you might say. I mostly root for Big Sky teams to be interesting. Look at Cody Hawkins at Idaho State. I think that's been good for the Big Sky, that Idaho State's a team worth paying attention to at some level, which they were not prior to Cody Hawkins showing up, right? So I think both of these hires in different ways have chances to at least make the team worth paying attention to for a couple of years. I think the higher ceiling you'd have to say is Weber because of the institution itself. Not anything about Care. I don't know anything about Care other than the fact that alums love him. And that's one of those things that's not a marker of if the guy is good or not, right? We've seen that in the Vandal world. The alums can love a guy and he works out great. The alums can not know who a guy is and they work out great, right? So alums loving you is irrelevant in sorting how things are going to work out. It's a cool story for Weber if that does work out, but I do 100% agree, Dallas, that's what it came to. The way it rang with me was was the search only with guys who have literal connections to Utah and or Weber State. Because otherwise, there's a lot of good guys who can potentially be head coaches. Honestly, Idaho's announcement of Shoemaker at OC is a splashier or a better hire in as far as experience is concerned than Kerr is at Weber State. Or, if we played it back, go back to 2021 and Idaho hired a guy of Kerr's background or hired a guy of, Shoemaker's background at the time. Oh, dude, 100 times out of 100, I know what direction I'm going. And it's not the high school guy with no experience whatsoever. I don't know. Both were shocking hires in different ways. Portland State feeling like they punched way above their weight class. Kerr, I don't want to be too harsh on him because I don't know his background, but that felt like Weber punching way below, way lower than what they at least could be headline wise with that hire. Headlines don't win you games. And you brought up Ed McCaffrey. Ed McCaffrey clearly did not take Big Sky football seriously. He essentially thought he was God's gift to the conference, that him and his family would walk into Greeley a couple times a week and take the conference by storm. I don't think you got to worry about Kerr in that way. I don't think you're 1% concerned about, is he going to take the job seriously? And is he going to put in the type of work you need to win? He has a different set of challenges.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. I wish them the best of luck. It's funny to me that on paper, Idaho has a better hire at coordinator than they do at head coach. But hey, that's sometimes how things go. Guys get jobs they maybe shouldn't have, like Ed McCaffrey. But with that said, we are well over an hour, guys. I did want to hit very quickly, only because I saw it brought up in the comment section. I apologize for whoever brought it to my attention. I did not keep your name saved. But we do have 2 final FCS football games to preview in 2025. So without further ado, the game everybody wants to talk about, Illinois' Taint versus Villanova, gentlemen. 4:30 Pacific on 12:20.
Well, we usually only preview the Big Sky games, but I'm going to go Illinois' Taint because they picked up 2 pretty big wins, and I don't have faith in the CAA, even if they're in the title.
Yeah, I'll go Illinois State too.
I'm honestly shocked that Tarleton lost to Villanova. I feel like the Nova magical run probably ends here. The reason we started with this game, guys, is because I'm going to take a wild guess and say the winner of the other game is who we would all be picking to win the national title. So, without actual further ado, Brawl of the Wild 2.0, Montana State versus Montana, number 2 versus number 3, 1 o'clock Pacific, 12:20. Martin.
Is this game on ESPN or ABC?
Oh, I should have looked that up.
ABC.
All right, thanks, Brian. I'm going to go Montana State.
Man, I am so torn on this one. I'm going to go Montana State just because the Grizz haven't had a convincing road win really on the season. I mean, maybe you'd call Sac State would be the closest to a convincing road win the Grizz have, but Montana's. Yeah, it's on ABC. Montana State is really tough defensively, and look, Montana can score. Like they're going to put up some points. It's just that it's going to be cold. That if that can be a little bit harder for the teams that rely a little bit more on big plays from wide receivers, and high end quarterback play, which Montana relies on more so than Montana State. Montana State gets very solid play from Justin Lamson, but Kieli Ayat has been. He was a Walter Payton Award nominee for a reason, right? And Justin Lamson was not. Feels like weather can matter a little bit more. Of course, both teams are used to playing in shit weather, but I just feel like it lines up a little bit more for Montana State. The only reservations I have is just the fact of beating a team twice is tough. And both these teams are going to come out with max energy for sure. Like you're not worried about a team shitting the bed necessarily, but the Grizz do have a little bit extra. And as good as Vegan is at goddamn everything, I don't know, like Hauck is good at the momentum shit and the making you feel aggrieved and helping that turn into something shit. There's some ways where this game feels like it was just meant for Hauck. The only reason I'm saying Montana State is I just haven't seen the Grizz do it on the road against anyone this year.
As Nick Weber says in the comment section, it's hard to get a road win if you only play home games. Guys, I hate to do this, but book it. Kieli Ayat is going to be the second member of the Ayat family to win a national title with the Montana Grizzlies. They are going to go in. They will upset Montana State this weekend. They are going to go to the national title, and they are going to win it all because they are the best team in the entire country.
For those who are listening and not viewing, there may be some reverse jinx dropping going on here.
I saw it, Dallas. I saw it.
Thank you, Martin. I knew you did. I know you clocked it almost immediately. But again, guys, I cannot pick against the Grizz. They are, I think, a better football team in every single aspect other than the trenches. I think Montana State obviously is one of the few schools that has a line that can compete with, again, I would say the Dakotas, but they're gone. Man, something about those Grizz. They're going to do it. It's finally the year.
Well, with that said, dude, I never expect a non-football season episode to go an hour and 9 minutes, but here we are. And I need to run pretty damn quick. So, Yeah, support the show, patreon.com/Tubs of the Club, to join the hashtag Only Tubs Discord, which is where we give our hashtag just the tips when we can. So it costs less than a cup of coffee a month to support, and it's also the best, most active online chat for University of Idaho you will find, bar none.
With that said, go Vandals.
Go Vandals.
Go Vandals.